Lonergan, Angrynomics. Dive into the world of Angrynomics and uncover the hidden power of anger in shaping our societies. Penned by Lonergan, this book unravels the complexities of anger, its various forms, and its impact on contemporary events. You'll discover how justified anger can fuel positive change, while tribalism exacerbates discrimination and division. From understanding the role of economic insecurity and unresponsive politicians in creating public anger, to exploring potential solutions for redesigning capitalism to promote equality and address the root causes of outrage, this book summary presents a compelling and thought-provoking exploration of today's global realities.
Harnessing justified anger. A seemingly diverse set of events, such as conflicts in Northern Ireland, the Icelandic government collapse, and the Philadelphia Eagles' victory riots, all share one common thread: anger. This powerful emotion can drive societal changes when it's justified, but it can also be destructive when it's harnessed for tribalism. Anger promotes adherence to social norms and motivates people to address injustices. However, it can also fuel division and discrimination when exploited by politicians misleadingly channeling it against others. Recognizing righteous indignation from destructive tribalism can help societies turn anger into positive change. In 1980, Northern Ireland faced a bloody conflict between citizens wanting reunification with Ireland and those loyal to Britain. In 2017, the Panama Papers exposed Icelandic government officials operating offshore tax havens, causing protests that led to the government's collapse. In 2018, Philadelphia Eagles fans rioted and destroyed parts of the city after their team's Super Bowl win. All these events, though seemingly unrelated, have one prominent aspect in common: anger. As an emotion, anger plays a significant role in shaping societies when it is justified. Anger maintains social norms that contribute to the collective good. When someone cheats or steals, they face the collective anger of their peers, instilling fear and discouraging selfish behavior. This moral outrage can provoke positive changes by rectifying injustices, as seen in Iceland, where citizens overcame political corruption with their justified anger. When directed to the actual root of injustice, anger can facilitate the establishment of a fairer system. However, there is another aspect of collective anger that leans towards tribalism. This kind of anger encourages people to affiliate closely with identity groups and aggressively target perceived outsiders. Often triggered by stress, fear, and uncertainty, this tribalism takes the form of nationalism in modern politics. Politicians like Narendra Modi, Viktor Orban, and Donald Trump have used tribal anger to rally political support by exploiting dissatisfaction and shifting blame onto scapegoats like immigrants. While it may lead to electoral success, this type of anger does not address the core issues facing society. The challenge now is to differentiate justified anger, which can drive positive change, from the destructive tribalism that divides us. By identifying legitimate sources of anger and managing it effectively, societies can make progress towards addressing their issues. Otherwise, it will continue to be a tool for manipulation that prevents genuine solutions from being realized. Fueling public anger. Imagine a young couple living comfortably in 2005, stable jobs, careful savings, and a promising housing market pave the way for a bright future. They could never foresee the collapse of the market or the government's lack of support, but that's exactly what happened. This story exemplifies how economic insecurity and unresponsive politicians fuel public anger. For decades, political and economic upheaval has widened the wealth gap, leaving many stuck in stagnant living standards. People are growing increasingly resentful, feeling neglected by government institutions that resort to blaming complex issues on vague forces rather than offering tangible solutions. In the early 2000s, a young couple in Spain enjoyed stable public sector jobs, a modest financial cushion, and the prospect of entering the booming property market with a generous bank loan. Fast forward a few years, and the world witnessed the devastating aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis followed by the Eurozone crisis. Faced with their once prized house now plummeting in value and their job security vanishing, this couple represents millions of citizens in the United States and Europe left struggling. A sense of justified anger pervades, fueled by economic insecurity in unresponsive politicians. As the world has undergone considerable political and economic restructuring, inequality has risen dramatically. Neoliberal economic policies emphasizing tax cuts and reduced social spending have resulted in unbalanced income distribution, with the top 1% receiving 90% of income gains since 2012. Hardworking people have been left in the dust, despite laboring more and earning less. In the US, real median income hasn't risen in 30 years, leading to stagnating living standards. Meanwhile, people in small towns watch enviously as those in big cities flourish. This growing resentment only worsens when political institutions provide insufficient responses to their grievances. Post-Cold War politics saw dominant parties shift to the right, with leaders resorting to blaming globalization or embracing nationalism instead of crafting real policy solutions to remedy growing economic divides. The government's lack of action and sympathy for those left behind by economic turmoil only fuel the fire of public anger, leaving citizens feeling forgotten and ignored by the very institutions meant to serve them. Redesigning capitalism's blueprint. Capitalism can be compared to a computer system, with its institutions representing hardware and ideology embodying software. Throughout history, various iterations of capitalism have experienced their own sets of issues and crashes, prompting a need for redesign. Contemporary capitalism still needs improvements to prevent further outrage and instability. If capitalism were a computer, its institutions, such as banks and governments, would represent its hardware components. In comparison, ideologies like free market liberalism or social democracy can be seen as the software that governs how these components interact. Just as computer systems need upgrades and bug fixes to maintain stability, so does capitalism. Since the mid-1800s, there have been three major iterations of the capitalist system. The first iteration believed that markets should never be interfered with by the state, operating under the belief in unquestionable market correctness. However, it eventually led to widespread poverty, unemployment, the Great Depression, and even contributing to World War II. Post-World War II, with the rise of Keynesian economic models and a need for change, a new version of capitalism emerged. This iteration shifted more control to labor unions and government and less to investors and markets. It succeeded in creating widespread economic growth, nurturing a strong middle class, but also had a significant flaw: the prevalence of inflation and disappointingly low return on investments. In the 1970s and 1980s, capitalism underwent another renovation called neoliberalism. Hardware components such as labor unions were weakened, while governments deferred to the market more readily. Inequality increased, and banks became prone to overextending loans and collapsing. This form of capitalism has already experienced one crash, during the financial crisis of 2008. However, unlike previous crashes, the 2008 event did not prompt a significant redesign of the capitalist system. Instead, only minor tweaks were implemented, and the existing model continued to operate. This refusal to address the inherent issues within the system will likely lead to the same problems materializing, potentially with even more disastrous outcomes this time around. Ignoring the need for vital improvements in the design of capitalism will result in the continued rise of discontent and anger. Addressing these concerns requires an understanding of why the current system is faulty and a willingness to consider bold and innovative ideas to create a more stable and sustainable model for society. The economic roots of anger. Rapid market changes, job automation fears, generational wealth disparities, and misconceptions about immigration are fueling today's stress and aggravation. Together, these factors contribute to an environment of uncertainty and insecurity, provoking anger and unease within the general population. Imagine this: your car breaks down and you're stressed about the costs. Your boss demands you learn a new system to keep the company competitive, while the grocery store you relied on shuts down, replaced by a market catering to a new immigrant population. Life has become increasingly uncertain as economic forces drive anxiety and anger. For many, job insecurity is a significant source of stress. A combination of factors, including industrial deregulation and rapid technological advances, forces companies to stay competitive and innovate. Consequently, workers must continually adapt, cultivate new skills, and put in extra hours, leading to a greater sense of pressure. Another anxiety-inducing factor is the fear of job automation. Although evidence on the impact of artificial intelligence on employment is inconclusive, the mere possibility of automation can be nerve-wracking. Workers are increasingly concerned about their long-term job security, as companies eagerly adopt cost-saving measures. Furthermore, there is a noticeable wealth gap between generations. Baby boomers, the generation that flourished in the post-war economy, enjoyed social programs such as affordable education and a strong job market. As a result, they amassed substantial wealth and political clout. However, younger generations face greater challenges in achieving similar security, largely due to shifts in economic policies and societal norms. Lastly, immigration plays a role in fostering anger and resentment. Although diverse communities contribute positively to economic growth, public perception often paints a different picture. Opportunistic politicians exploit these misconceptions, presenting immigrants as burdens on social programs and deepening already existing tension. This negative portrayal is especially concerning for individuals living in economically declining areas, who tend to view newcomers as direct competition. In conclusion, economic factors largely contribute to the anger and stress experienced in today's society. Rapid market shifts, uncertain job security, generational wealth disparities, and immigration misconceptions are all pieces of a larger puzzle, creating an environment where feelings of uncertainty prevail. These trends, intertwined and continually evolving, give rise to a collective unease about our economic futures. Redeveloping capitalism for equality. The image of capitalism as a driver of anger and inequality calls for a re-evaluation of its workings. By retaining the positives, such as high employment rates and low inflation, we can eliminate downsides like inequality and instability. One solution could be establishing a national wealth fund to provide the bottom 80% with more wealth and assets. Moreover, decentralizing decision-making power and allowing for region-specific solutions could help address individual needs more effectively. Exploring other reform options, like making big tech firms pay licenses for public data or encouraging eco-friendly investments, can help create a revised capitalism that caters to a wider populace instead of just a select few. Capitalism, as it currently stands, is often associated with anger and inequality, leading to calls for a systemic reboot. However, scrapping the entire system may not be necessary. Certain aspects have produced positive results, like high employment rates and low inflation. By focusing on preserving these outcomes, we can also work on eliminating the detrimental byproducts, specifically, inequality and instability. One way to combat inequality is by providing the bottom 80% with more wealth and assets. Countries can capitalize on low interest rates to establish a national wealth fund. This involves governments borrowing money through bond sales and investing the capital in diverse mutual funds. Every few years, the returns, about 4 to 6%, can be distributed among citizens to be spent on essential needs such as housing, education, and healthcare. This approach has already seen success in countries like Norway, Singapore, and the Gulf states. Granting countries and regions greater flexibility to experiment with novel policies could also lead to more effective solutions. Rather than relying solely on supranational entities like the EU for decision-making, allowing regional authorities to tailor policies according to local needs can create a stronger sense of empowerment. This approach also enables testing new ideas and encourages innovation. There is no shortage of additional reform possibilities. For instance, countries could redistribute wealth by requiring big tech firms to pay for licenses when using public data. Alternatively, central banks could offer preferential interest rates to businesses investing in decarbonization efforts. The focus should be on identifying strategies that counter the economic trends fueling public outrage and private stress. In conclusion, calibrating capitalism to serve a greater number of people can mitigate the anger and frustration currently pervading society. A collaborative effort to implement policies that benefit a wider demographic can help establish a more harmonious and inclusive economic landscape.
Throughout Angrynomics, Lonergan reveals the dual nature of anger and its impact on society. Justified anger can be a force for change and improvement, while tribalism drives division and discrimination. The book highlights how economic insecurity, unresponsive politicians, and flawed systems fuel anger and dissatisfaction, and underscores the need for a systematic redesign of capitalism to promote equality and stability. By learning from successful countries like Canada and Australia, and considering innovative solutions such as national wealth funds, personalized economic policies, and environmentally focused incentives, we can work towards a future that fosters harmony, justice, and a secure path for all.